I don't have to look at myself. You guys are giving me insight. It's been fun.
Let's go. Call to order. The regular agenda meeting of the Biwabik City Council, Monday, December 9th, 2024, at 5:32 p.m. Do we have a roll call, please, Shannon?
Pollard. Here. Amy. Here.
Here. Here. Let the minutes reflect that Councilor Waller is participating remotely pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.02 subdivision 1 that allows for participation in a situation where a councilor is has an illness and is advised not to participate in public. Let's get going, Jeff. I'll start with you. If you got to throw at us.
The budget, we do have the Okay. And we're recommending that. I'm recommending that. Approval of the warming shack attendants to bring back Clay Karish and Lena Shears. Hopefully we'll have a better winter this year to be able to use those amenities. The fire and ambulance department interviewed a great candidate for the department this year. And also a new person to town just moved to town, and one of the first things they did was came in and had to interview with the fire department. And my understanding is started chipping in with some of the other stuff before they were appointed. They took part in some Wine Fest activities with the department. The authorization to prepare and submit the grant application to FEMA. This is an annual event for us, submitting a grant application to a federal program. Very competitive program. The chances are fairly small of getting it because of the amount of applications they get and the amount of money that's available. But we have been awarded those grants in the past. We are awarded those grants. It's a 95/5 match, meaning the federal government pays 95% of the purchase and the city pays 5%. So it's a really good program to go after and get it. The 2023 audit that was prepared and brought back to us by Walker, Drew, and Hani. So we do accept that. Quick overview of to kind of clear up some of the questions we had on some overages and some repair costs for the pieces of apparatus in the fire department. And then the set date for the January 2025 City Council meeting. There's several different things going on that kind of make choosing a January City Council meeting a little bit difficult. So we'll have to kind of discuss schedules and how we want to do a organizational meeting and the regular business meeting, if they'll be one and the same, or if we just spread those out.
Is that it, or?
Yeah, and then if you want to go into the straight into budget stuff after that, the other thing, it's in the consent agenda. Draw your attention to the year-end report from the Youth Activities Coordinator, Mark Hurt, for our partnership with the other East Ridge communities and Wasabi East School. Mark has his end of the year report in that for you.
Thank you. I don't see any consultants or not aware of the additional staff updates.
Correct.
Go ahead and jump right into the council review. You want to just do this in order? Start with Council Berg, if you got anything you want to ask about the agenda. Okay. Councilor Mimi?
Yeah, and that's the only one that's entered in there now. We did, as of Monday, December 2nd, created a updated vehicle maintenance tracking form that'll go in there as well, starting with the December report. And there was a question on PW62 that was kind of cryptic. That's the 2011 Ford. For some reason, they had at one point they had PW62, and the pickup that the utilities had was WW62. Don't know where that came from, but that's how the whole from that. No idea what 62 denotes, but it's the 2011 Ford pickup.
Anything else? Okay. Councilor, go ahead.
Stephanie, auditor. Two questions. Voting how it 72 hours of my office. It's not good. This is a lot of information. Right?
Yeah.
And oh, sorry.
Yeah, so that's a lot of information, a lot of numbers.
And one thing to keep in mind on that, the auditors from our auditing firm are more than willing to come in and go through that also if you want to hear it straight from the auditor. So some cities do that, some cities don't. We haven't traditionally done that, but we could certainly go over with the auditors. Patty Savy. There's some other sports that.
And some of the things that were addressed are standard operating stuff that they put in all their audits about not enough staff. I've often been tempted to ask one of the auditors just how many employees would we need to satisfy that requirement, that you have the separation of duties.
They would do the exact same thing. You got two people, what you got.
Yep.
But I would like to, that's a long-term thing, that's not a
Okay.
business article.
I did note the recommendation about the capitalization going from 2,500 to 5,000. Last year, within my previous employment, we went through the same thing because we were capitalizing every single piece of equipment that was over 20, any PC, and then you had to track them. It was just ridiculous. So they did request, and our board did raise it to 5,000, which seemed like a more reasonable number. So that seems like that's again another standard thing that they're inserting in their audit.
And I'll always remember my very first introduction to city government. I was just an intern in Waseca, was sitting in on the meeting where they were very worked up about the new requirements on depreciation as it came to city property and how you're possibly expected to depreciate out roads and sidewalks and things like that. But But those are in there, that's covered in that as part of the government accounting standards. Some of the information is more helpful than others.
Right. It'd be really nice if it was separate. If you could do a separate public utilities, separate general fund audit. That would be mixing it all together. That would be nice, but the real world doesn't work that way. So that's all.
Did you come up with anything else?
And then this is real petty, but on page 25, why is it so much smaller than the other pages? And and I know it's petty, but it's like, when you get older, you need a magnifying glass, people. I'm just finding it interesting because every time we do a budget, this page is always a lot smaller print.
You know why?
No, I have no idea. I know it's petty, but
I think it should be set to print that page landscape instead of portrait. But if you turn it
Oh,
sideways,
yeah.
it would stretch it out. So I can.
it'd just be easier to read.
I'll make a
I
note of
marked it.
that.
I can read it, but it would just be easier if the print was a little bigger. And I've noticed that on all the budgets, it always seems to be smaller. And that's an important page, by the way, just because it's on page 25.
Yep. And now that you mention it, the wasted space on the bottom in the small print, if it were turned, you'd be able to.
I would appreciate it.
Okay. Certainly.
Like to see it. Thank you, Jim.
His day will come.
I was just gonna say I can see it no problem.
I'm currently in the in-between stage where I don't know if I should take them off or put them on.
Well, Tim takes his off to read small print like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just would make it easier. And I just always found it unusual. It is an important page for people to look at.
Was the council amenable to the suggestion of holding off a discussion of the budget until?
I don't want to hear it all twice.
So I'm going to give everybody one last chance.
Oh,
How soon we forget? Councilor Waller.
Yes, so this is the revenue summary and the expenditure summary, and I probably do know the answer to this, but under the expenditure summary, we're way under for capital projects, and I assume it has to do with the flooding. I mean, we went way over our budget, and for that and the sewer fund.
Yeah, so flooding on the general capital projects and then sewer fund. There's that project going on the east shore of Wine and Sabin Lake to add that low pressure sewer line for the housing development out there. And that was a project that came up that was funded after the 2024 budget was set. It was part of a legislative allocation that we got in the last mineral tax bill.
So the grant will reflect this, like at the year-end report, or when?
Depends on when those reimbursements come in. That's in the reimbursement process right now with IRRR, and they are funding that by issuing debt. So they've got to do the bond issuance on that before we get reimbursed on that. So I don't know that that will be received in calendar year 24.
Okay, and then the capital projects. So what's happening with FEMA and our reimbursement from FEMA?
We should see reimbursement within 90 days of November 26th.
Thank you. That's when you met with them, November 26th?
Yeah, that was the deadline to have our inventory of damages in, and then from there, the reimbursement process starts. It's 90 days from there. And
And I just want to mention that I feel that the iWorks reports are looking better, that there's times assigned to tasks, which is really nice to see. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor, and apologies for getting you there. All I had to do is look up, and you're sitting there. Okay, one last chance. If not, we can adjourn the agenda setting meeting at 5:47, and then you have a 13-minute break until we reconvene. Council? Do it. Call to order. The regular meeting of the Biwabik City Council is Monday, December 9th, 2024, and it is 6 p.m. Could I have a roll call, please, Shannon?
Here.
Here. Let the record show that Councilor Wallard is participating remotely pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D, 02, Subdivision 1B, which allows for situations where an individual has a medical condition that they should not be in a public meeting. So, Councilor Wallard is a full participant this evening, and you should be able to see her on the screen. Before we get to the agenda, I would invite those who are able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. Council, you have in front of you the meeting agenda. If there are no changes, or if there are changes, this would be the time to make them. Oh, that's frozen. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. It's been moved by Councilor Nemi, supported by Councilor Berg. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. And Councilor Wallard, I'll try and not move things too fast so that if there's any kind of lag with the audio or anything like that, that you have a chance to weigh in on things.
Thank you.
The next item is the consent agenda. As is typical of our meetings, if there's anything you want pulled for further discussion, we would pull that item and add it to the new business list. Otherwise, we need a motion to approve as presented unless there's items that you would like pulled. Moved by Councilor Beyondich, supported by Councilor Nemi. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Well, we're flying along famously here. It is 6:03 p.m. I'm going to recess the council meeting for the purpose of a hearing to allow for public input on the 2025 City of Biwabik proposed budget and property tax levy. We do ask, if possible, for speakers to come up to the podium. We are live streaming the meeting tonight on YouTube, and so this allows the chance for the audience who might be watching remotely to see who is speaking and probably to better hear you speaking as well. So with that, Jeff, do you want to kick it off, and then we'll invite public input.
If you Mayor, I don't know if it's stealing your line to point out that so the budget that we're looking at tonight and the tax rate and the proposed tax bills are based on the valuations that were set at and finalized at the local board of appeal and equalization meeting last spring. If there's questions about the valuation of the property, that would also be on your proposed tax bill. The time for that was last March. There'll be another one of those coming around next year for the valuation that'll be used for the 2026 budget, but valuations are set and are unchangeable at this point. What you have in front of you, and there's 50 more copies up on the table here. The operational budget for 2025 does show about a 9.5% increase in the tax levy, of $109,000 increase, and about an 8.5% increase in the tax rate. The reason the tax rate percentage increase is lower than the levy is because we did have an increase in the net tax capacity of the city, which is just the tax wording that you use to describe spreading that pool a little wider. There's more people that are paying, therefore even with the higher levy, the rate doesn't go up as much because of the added value.
Jeff, I think we should point out that the budget we're looking at tonight is substantially different in terms of the total budget than the preliminary level that levy that everybody saw on their postcards from St. Louis County. So,
and we're pretty close to cutting that tax levy increase in half. It was a little over $200,000 before. Now the increase is $109,000. That is mostly due to the addition of a couple of revenues, small cities aid that will be provided to us through the state, and then some one-time money that was provided to us as part of the COVID funding, one of the programs that was put in place for some financial help during the COVID pandemic. It needs to be used up by the end of this following calendar year. So the budget committee had found some offsets in this budget to use that money. And so for each page in the budget, as you open it up, the left-hand page is the explanation of the numbers that are on the right-hand side. Not a whole lot of changes year to year. For the most part, our expenses are as per usual. Some inflationary changes. Let's see here. Okay, going into the council revenues, there's some licensing revenue that's in there. The contributions and donations line, that is a pass-through line. A few years ago, it was decided that the charitable organizations that have pull tabs, charitable gambling in town, which is generally pull tabs, give a percentage of their revenue to the city for public purposes. The city passes along to fund BACA events. That can be changed, but that is the council's current use of that is to help fund those community projects, those community events. The council expenditures, there's some money in there for the actual councilor salary. There's legal fees are there. The city attorney expenses are split between the city general fund and the utility funds. Conference expenses to pay for training or expenses that the council would need to go to. General notices and public info. That was increased a few years ago to allow us to do more mailings and to get some more stuff out in order to communicate with the public. Dues and subscriptions, that's 17.5. That is mostly the Eastern Joint Powers Board, which we're a member of for community and economic development purposes, and the League of Minnesota Cities, which is kind of a key organization for all cities in Minnesota to belong to. There's a lot of services that they provide. Some new stuff, strategic plan expenses, $10,000 in order to have some money available for things that might come out of the SD groups, where they bring back suggestions to the council if the council wants to proceed with something, but it's going to test for the property owner, the bill of property owner. Those last two items, those are identified by the budget committee as something that would be offset by that one-time COVID money. As with the entire budget, there is no magic connection between the dollar bill that comes in and the dollar bill that goes out. But in setting the budget, the budget committee did discuss that as something that with what we've been doing. There's $20,000 in the professional services line, $15,000 of which the council had approved a facilities study, to be done by our city engineer to evaluate the city buildings and determine what projects and what deferred maintenance type things need to be done. That's another area where $15,000 of that to pay for that study was identified as being offset by that one-time COVID money. The telephone and internet line. That's all the landlines, all the cell phones, and all the internet service within with the city as a whole. So not just in one office, but that covers it for all of our locations and all the employees. Postage is just as it says. 2,500 in conference expenses. That's for expenses or training that I would attend throughout the year. And then insurance, that is, get our insurance through the Minnesota City's Insurance Trust, as do, I believe, every city that's not self-insured, where some of the larger ones are. And those premiums are split between the city general fund and the public utilities funds as appropriate. There are no elections scheduled for 2025. The possibility of special elections does exist. I don't know if the city would have any. If any of the other units of government call for a special election, they're responsible for those costs. If the school district or something like that would come up with a need for a special election, that does not come out of our budget. That comes out of in the accounting line, again, that's largely personnel costs for the accounting department, as well as the fee for our audit. There's $32,000 in there for our audit. Our audit is fairly extensive, takes most of the year, and that's another one that is split out between the city and public utilities as appropriate. EDP software and design, that covers our website, the iWork system, those other programs like that that we purchased, the subscription costs for those. Some conference expenses for training or expenses that the staff might attend throughout the year, and then miscellaneous of 500 to 250 for dues and subscriptions for professional organizations. Electric utilities, we do have the city does have a utility bill, even though we have a municipal electric operation in town. There's a municipal rate to the Biwabik Public Utilities that we pay, so it's reduced, but we still do pay an electric bill. 20,000 in gas utilities, essentially the heat bill. 40,000 in repairs and maintenance on buildings. We've got every year we've got maintenance and repairs to do on the buildings. There's 40,000 in here. That's another area. About half of that was identified as the budget committee by the budget committee as being offset by the one-time COVID money. So out of that 40,000, 20,000 is seen as an offset. We've got the building facility study in the works right now. So when we get that back, we get the results of that, have that discussion. I imagine that will kind of shape the 2026 budget and going forward. But for right now, that's what we have in there to do repairs and maintenance. Under the police line, we've got a $12,000 revenue line. There is a contract between the city of Gilbert and Dino Bell Blasting Company. They need to. One of their requirements is to have a firm or a police department or a security firm do checks out there periodically. And we've had we've got a contract in place to do that with them since 2007. So I know I've been dealing with it since then. I'm not sure when it started, but it's been in place at least that long. One of the few big jumps in the budget, there's a $438,000 expense for our contract for police services with the city of Gilbert, up from $338,000. There's an explanation there on page 9 that breaks down almost all the expenses into what those equipment and what those equipment costs in personnel costs and other line items is. So most, if you want to take a look at page 9, lines up with the spreadsheet that's on page 10 has a breakdown. There's some revenue that comes into the fire department, $7,000 in state aid for training reimbursements. The department generally gets grants throughout the year. They've been pretty successful with grants. That's something else that would go in there. We don't have anything scheduled in there now, but as we get, whether it's equipment grants or training grants, that we added up the revenue line to offset some of the costs. Our department has been growing throughout the years. So we've got a fair amount in there to cover the wages and salaries and training of the department. Equipment repair has been one of the larger expenses. There's the apparatus that's in the hall does take maintenance and repair. We don't, other than the pickup which we purchased last year, we don't have any new equipment. Most of our equipment has some age, some miles on it, so we budget appropriately to repair those items. There is a portion of the equipment line item which is offset by the one-time COVID funds in order to kind of just keep that increase in check a little bit. So there's a one-time offset in that, which wouldn't be there for 26. That would be something that we'd have to. That'll be another item that we'll have to consider throughout the year as we put together the 2026 budget on how to right size this and how to get our priorities for that. That'll be a project for us. The building inspection budget is tricky. Our building permit revenue is based on how many permits we have that come into City Hall. Those can be anything from a $50 roofing permit to a several $1,000 permit for a new housing start to several dozens of $70,000 permit fees for some of the projects that have gone up at Giants Ridge with the multi-million-dollar projects. So there could be some real spikes in there in our revenue. Our expenditures are based on our revenue, so it'll always be a portion of the contract price. The contract price for our building first will always be a portion of the permit fees. So in theory, barring some weird events, we can't lose money on it. We will always take in more revenue than we spend. So the line items that are in here do show it's a fairly conservative estimate on our building inspection revenue and expenses, because we have no guarantee of any building going on year to year. Right now, there's a lot of building activity going on. We've gone through years where there's been none or close to it. But I don't want to go the other way and start budgeting or expecting 6 figures plus in building permit revenue and then hit another year where, for various reasons, the building permits don't come in. The public works budget, look at the top of the spreadsheet for expenditures. Quite a bit of it is personnel costs, wages, insurance, and other benefits for the crew, for the 4-person crew. Those items are set and laid out in the union contract that we negotiate with the local 49. We've got a contract coming up at the end of 2025, so in the next few months here we'll be negotiating the next one, but those items reflect what's in the current contract. And then we have line items for equipment and fuel for the equipment and repairs we've got repairs to the equipment and to the streets and some infrastructure. New item in there this year is the payment for the sweeper, $37,500. That's the second 4 payments based on the financing that we got from McQueen. We bought that street sweeper. The stormwater system, that was a department in a fund that didn't exist before we did the citywide reconstruction program. That was when we sat down and we looked at what we had in place, and at that point there was no dedicated revenue for for stormwater repairs. It was either part of a larger project or kind of shoehorned out of a street repair. So that was set up to brings in about $50,000 in revenue each year, with $40,000 of that going to pay the bond for the citywide reconstruction project. So it kicks on the debt service there, and then $10,000 for repairs and maintenance to the system. In the recreation budget, we've got some pretty good numbers there as we've kind of fine-tuned our system with reservations and our a year-round amenities coordinator who handles campground duties. Able to bring in a decent amount of revenue and be able to forecast that. So we're looking at about $170,000 in revenue for the department, which is probably conservative, but again, we don't want to assume a peak year and then have to go back from that. So that's a fairly conservative estimate, which is covered by this is not it's not an enterprise fund where it's self-sustaining. That's been discussed, but this is part of the city's general fund. But the way our budget is set up to just show that these activities do bring in more revenue than they cost. So it's one of the few departments that we have that's like that. So that campground revenue offsets the cost for our campground host, and also the amenities coordinator is paid for campground duties and for the off-season amenities coordination. So it covers that. It covers our agreement with the other East Range communities and Wasabi School for the joint recreation director, and also covers the cost for lifeguards at the beach when we have them, and then utilities for the beach, campground, athletic fields, ball fields, West End, Sliding Hill, stuff like that. Covers all the utilities out there, and then some equipment to replace for the recreational facilities. Going down to the capital line, slight increases there. The $30,000 line for Park Committee, we increased that to $40,000 this year, with the understanding that we would have additional costs to deal with the amenities on Main Street. The plantings that we were able to get through a grant with MnDOT, and didn't have to pay for the installation of those. There will be ongoing maintenance costs as we go forward. So that line was increased in order to account for that. Equipment and capital outlay. There's a need for equipment replacement. We'll have to sit down and prioritize and choose those items that we're looking at buying in 2025. That was increased to $215,000 this year. The $15,000 increase is another item that was identified as being offset by the one-time COVID money, so it doesn't have a direct hit on this year's tax bill. The ambulance is an enterprise fund, so that is budgeted with projections. The ambulance only operates under fees for service, and then if they get grants or other aid, that is not offset with any city tax dollars at this point. Cemetery is new, and we have not done that as a city department before. So there was money that was brought over that's still in the cemetery account. But for 2025, we are only budgeting for $10,000 of that to offset maintenance costs at the cemetery, while we come up with our longer-term plan for maintaining the cemetery. That does not include some of the larger work that needs to be done down there. Just our maintenance for 2025 while we work on it. Then going over to the utility funds, these are all enterprise funds. These are not offset by tax levy. These are only paid by your monthly bill that you get for using utility services or grants that we might get for to offset these operations. And those are fairly straightforward. We've got the rates for residential, commercial, and municipal for each of the departments, and just kind of forecast based on previous years on what our revenues will be. Personnel costs in the utility funds are relatively small because we have so many of the services are provided through a contract. The water and sewer services are provided through a contract with People Service. Most of the electrical services are contracted with Minnesota Power. We also buy our wholesale power from. And then on the refuse side, we contract with Gardner Environmental, which was previously East Mesabi Sanitation, before it was sold by LMI. So the water revenue and expenditures are right around $480,000. And so based on projections with what we had with revenue in the past few years and our contract costs and what we have for personnel costs, we budget that real close where there's no profit to be made. There's no incentive to earn revenue over and above what we need to operate the system. It's strictly set up as an enterprise fund in order to provide that service. On the electrical side, the number bumps up quite a bit. Electrical is not a terribly common municipal utility around here. There's quite a few, but it's not really the norm in Minnesota. The dollar amounts are big. We buy a fair amount of electricity, then we sell a fair amount of electricity. The profit is not big. So again, we do that in order to keep our costs as low as possible. We only budget revenue in order to cover our costs and in this case, literally keep the lights on. So we've been able to create and have a very reliable system. Our system is in good shape. But the overall numbers can look a little scary. But most of what you're seeing for expense on that is the wholesale power that we're buying from Minnesota Power and then selling it at our retail rates at a very small markup. In wastewater, we've got our rates in wastewater are largely based on water usage. There's no way to really meter wastewater. So the numbers that are created by metering the water, those are also the amounts that we use along with our wastewater rates in order to set the revenues. And again, we're looking at $328,000 in revenue for wastewater with $323,000 in expenses. So just barely covering those expenses with some personal costs and then largely our contracted cost, which was negotiated by the Public Utilities Commission with People Service years ago. And then refuse, again, just offsetting our expenses there, with our big expense being the contract that we have with Gardner Environment. That next page is that's a linked spreadsheet with the breakdown of the personnel costs. Shows not only the cost of each department and each employee, but also the breakdown, how we spread those from the general fund over to the utility fund. Different employees have different amounts that are offset by the different proportions that are paid to the city and the different utility accounts. And then also one thing that's kind of not shown under the public works side, it's not shown under the personnel costs here, but the public utilities does contribute $50,000 towards personnel costs in public works because of the tasks that are done by public works for public utilities. So we are using that's one case where we are using some tax dollars, or we're offsetting some tax dollars because of because of the service that's provided. So it is a fee for service situation. The final page has a 3-year history of the tax rate in Biwabik and what that means for each for a home at each value. I've got some example values in here. If there's anybody that wanted to have a follow-up conversation and wanted to look at their exact value, this will work within a few dollars for any value that you have. If you let me know if it's what the value is and if it's homestead or non, I can give you the final estimation of what your tax will be. Should be lower than what everybody got on their postcard last month, because our final proposed levy is less than our preliminary, so you should see a decrease. But if anybody wants to see that, I can get that to you. The comparison of the 2024 to the 2025 taxes also includes some changes that were made by the legislature last year. Two big things that a homesteaded property has in the tax data assistance area is when you get your homestead exclusion on the value, meaning it's a homesteaded property. You may get as much as 40% off of the market value as your taxable value, and then the sliding scale from there. There is also a taconite credit that was increased to $515 this year from $315. So there's an additional $200 total off your bill that's spread out among the city, the school, and the county tax bills. So the portion of your city bill that it takes off amounts to $240. So if you have for example, if you have a $100,000 homesteaded home, there's a $37,550 homestead exemption, so you're paying taxes on $62,000 worth of value on that home. Take that by our tax rate, look at a $602 bill, apply the taconite credit of $240, and then that person's final bill is $362 to the city. Whereas last year on a $100,000 home, that final bill would have been $444. So under about $120,000 or $150,000 under this plan, a homesteaded property owner would see a decrease in their bill. From there'd be slight increases at each valuation, but because of the way that homestead credit works and the way the taconite credit works, up to right around $150,000 and break even or paying less than you did in 2024 for your tax.
Council's amenable. I'm going to open this up to members of the audience who wish to address the council on the budget. And as Jeff said earlier, if your question pertains to the value of your property, that's a function of the local board of appeal. That's typically in April, and will be again in probably next April. So we can't do anything about addressing that. It's not uncommon for people to come to the local board of appeal and complain about their taxes, and come to the truth of taxation hearing and complain about their valuation. But the reality is that those are reversed. Is there anybody who wishes to address the council tonight? Again, if possible, if you could use the podium so that the camera can pick you up and the recording can capture your comments.
And Mayor and Council, usually if there's any written communications or emails or anything that I get pertaining to the budget, I present them either beforehand or at the beginning. There's no written communications to present this year.
Thank you.
Please make sure the green light's on too, so you get recorded.
It's also official. Thanks for the opportunity. So I've had the opportunity to attend the budget meetings a couple times with Councilor Burke and Councilor Waller. And what I understand, wasn't able to make the last one, but the COVID money that came in to the tune of around, was it about $90,000? That helps offset the levy.
Feels like our fault.
Yeah. So that's really the question right here is, I'd like the council to reconsider adopting the budget as it is, but take a look at this thing. Oftentimes, we are asked for grants to have money for matching, and we don't. We just, it's not written in the budget and so forth, but here's an opportunity to take some of this or use some of this money, perhaps just as a figure, $50,000, and set that aside for money that could be used for matches. And I think that that's looking to the future, because we haven't applied for more grants because we haven't had the money. So if there's going to be a vote tonight on the budget as is, I think we're squandering. I appreciate the fact that $100 and some thousand was applied to the preliminary budget to lower the so-called final budget. But I'd like you to give some consideration to taking some of that money, whatever you deem necessary, to set aside for matching. We have a lot of things that are going on in this town, and I think it just makes a lot of sense to reallocate some of this money, because even though it would tip the scale a little bit on the tax levy side, wouldn't affect the tax rate dramatically. I think the citizens would be well served if they saw that we're applying for grants and getting grants, and we have the money to get the grants. That's all I have. Thank you.
Jeff, just as a matter of record, my understanding is we're coming close to the time when those so-called COVID funds have to be expended, that we're running out of time. Is that correct?
Well, we got two deadlines. One is to designate them, which is by the end of the year we have to designate them, so they're identified in the budget here. And then December 31st of 2025 would have to be spent. So
Thank you.
designated in the next couple weeks and spent the year in a couple weeks.
Anybody else wishing to address the council this evening? Cool. Going once. Going twice. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Senator, for your comments. With that, I have 6:40 p.m. I will close the so-called truth and taxation hearing. I don't think that title is actually formally applied anymore. And we will resume our regular meeting. With that, the council's ready. Have you warmed up all your motions and your seconds? Because there's a whole lot of. We'll start with item 9A. Oh, excuse me, I jumped ahead. I'm sorry.
Still at 6.
Yeah. And there are no presentations?
My name's Kieran Kennedy. I'm one of the owners of the East Range Times. The other owner is my wife. We've owned the paper for about 2 years. We've been living in the East Range for about the last 7 years. Bought the paper, like I said, about 2 years ago. We're now designated as a legal newspaper, but we're here tonight to ask for consideration for it to be considered for the legal newspaper for Biwabik. The paper is delivered across Hoyt Lakes, Aurora, Biwabik, Gilbert, some drop-offs in Virginia and Mackinnon and in Barris, to approximately 6,000 homes and locations. We would like to be considered to have the legal notices, meeting minutes from Biwabik published in the paper. It's published every week. It comes out it's printed on a Friday, comes out on Saturday to Monday. We applied last year, but I believe that a different paper was chosen, so we reduced the price, hopefully to be considered again this year. We've also introduced a tiering system. So if, for example, you put notices in or meeting minutes in 1 week, and then you want to do a summary later in the month, there'd be a reduced cost for that second, third, or fourth inclusion in the paper. Any questions?
I believe that action would be taken at the January meeting, and so I get the pleasure of telling Mayor-elect Beyondich that he gets to steer this one in a 2 weeks' time.
I would just say submit the proposal in writing
Okay, we can do that.
to
Yep.
the city administrator, so we don't, later on in the agenda, what day we're holding that reorganizational meeting. We've got some scheduling issues coming up in the next, at the end of the meeting, we'll be deciding that date, but I would make sure that something was to City Hall no later than December 31st.
December 31st. Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Thank you. Okay, we're at, no other presentations were scheduled yet? Okay. Mayor and council members, I'm gonna start with Councilor Berg.
End of the year, no complaining. Thank you. First, I don't think or Jeff or Chief Ty or Chief Dan expected a call in June that the dam was blown up again. What an incredible job you guys did. But very little complaints that I heard. I mean, Jeff lived here for how many months? I haven't heard a complaint. Thank you guys. Then I'll go in here tonight, the council person, what a job they've done. And the committees, the Why Not Fest, the 4th of July, the Oktoberfest. What a community. This is fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Waller, do you have anything you want to share?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Kind of.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Mayor Wyckoff for his many years of dedicated service to the city of Biwabik. We will have a new mayor coming in January. I'm not sure if this is our last meeting or not, but in case it is, I wanted to make sure that I thanked you. And then, yeah, thanks to the BACA and the Why Not Fest committee, Karen, or Melanie, and Tracy for organizing all the volunteers. I mean, there are a lot of people that volunteered, so there was a lot of organization to get all those people to what they needed to do. And then just everybody who participated in the contests in town, it was just wonderful. I took a ride around Friday night, and everything just looked so festive. It was really nice to see. Then I have a couple things for Jeff. At the last meeting, you stated that you were going to link some meetings from the city website, but I could not find the link on there.
I'll check the link. Should be linked to the YouTube site, but I will verify that or set that up.
I assumed it would be under government, but it wasn't there. And then I was wondering when we would have like an end of the year campground report, so we could see the revenues and expenditures from the campground. There would be a report done by January.
Yeah, we should be able to have that January meeting.
And then at our last meeting, the council made a couple motions. One of them was to remove the brush on 2nd Street North and the reflectors on 4th Street North. And neither of those have been completed as of yet.
Yeah, and we will get those removed. There was I think they were kind of set up a couple times to get those moved and stuff came up, but we'll get those removed.
And then you were going to contact the state about getting the signs for Main Street. Any news on that?
I'm sorry, there was another sound covered you up.
Okay. You were going to check with the state about getting the no parking signs for Main Street. Any news on that?
Ty, did you get anything back on no parking signs, Main Street? We'll put in another request to MIDOT.
Okay. And then the new crosswalk signs that we cut right at Fall. I noticed one of them is buried in a snowbank by Luke, and I'm not sure where the other one was. I assume they're not going to be out for winter, so maybe we should store them somewhere so they don't get wrecked.
Right, we actually were discussing that earlier on what the best thing to do with those, and yeah, they'll probably get tucked away for the winter.
Yeah, that would be a good thing. And that's all I have. And thank you guys for letting me sit in for COVID.
Thank you, and we're hoping you feel better soon. Councilor Nemi.
Yes, I just want to thank the Wyandotte Fest and all the volunteers for a beautiful job that they did this year. I like to drive around at night several times and look at all the lights and stuff. And it was just really nice. Thank you. I know there's a lot of volunteers and a lot of hours put in by people, so thank you. The other person is Mayor Wycombe for all the years of service you've done. Hopefully we won't have another meeting this month, but you never know. But I want to thank him also, Patty, for being on the council, and I've worked with her for a number of years also, and I've always appreciated the thoroughness that she's done. That's all I have.
Councilor Beyondich.
I too want to thank Mayor Wycombe for his 17, I was close, years of service to our city, as well as Councilor Waller, and also welcome Councilor Lehman as he starts in January as well. As everybody else mentioned, Wyandotte Fest was pretty fantastic, and the amount of compliments and comments and out-of-town visitors that commented on our town was fantastic. In fact, the first thing I heard that morning when I came at 7 to open up City Hall was somebody rolling down their window and yelling to another vendor out the window, "This town is so cute!" And that was kind of that morning. It was a good pick me up. It was better than the coffee that I had yet. And I did want to bring up one thing. Most everything I've got's on the agenda, but I want to bring up something about fire truck repair cost, which is on the agenda, but I know Chief Mackey might be leaving. And I just want to make everybody aware of the situation that we are in from our fire and ambulance service. So we are down to one ambulance currently, and it's probably looking that way for the foreseeable future. We are going to see a request to purchase a new ambulance probably at our next meeting, and the delivery time on that is 2026 if we order it today. So I want everybody to be thinking about that as we go in. The ambulance fund is currently built up enough to support that purchase, but that kind of brings up the bigger perspective of, as we talk about fire truck repair costs, the $650,000 fire truck that we didn't buy is now $1.2 million, and we still have a 35-year-old fire truck in that fire hall that has now got costs built in to put more money into it and repair it for the next year's upcoming budget. The longer we wait, the older that truck gets. It's a 4-year lead time, and we may have to be making some pretty tough decisions in the near future on how we're going to approach this, unless we want to just discontinue fire service. And I'm pretty sure nobody wants that. I'm pretty sure nobody wants their homeowner's insurance bill after we do that. So just something to think about as we probably go into our January meeting with some decisions to make, and hopefully we'll hear some more about that soon. I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. The last thing is, in the next couple weeks, I'm going to hopefully meet with everybody, outgoing and incoming, try to get a one-on-one discussion as to priorities, concerns, advice, all that good stuff. So look forward to a new year, and I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I have some good news. I did not prepare a speech. I do want to thank all the various committees, and we had to, for family emergency reasons, we had to miss Vinox Fest this year, although we were hustling back from Rochester, and we got as far as Highway 97, and we looked in the sky, and there was fireworks. I don't know how many miles that is out of town, but unfortunately, that was all the fireworks we saw, so that must have been the finale. But just from 8 or 9 miles away, it was pretty spectacular. So I can only imagine how the rest of the event went. If that was the cap to the evening, it must have been a terrific day. So thank you to everyone who put their time and effort into that. I tried to do a little bit of calculating today. 17 years as mayor, somewhere between 200 and 300 meetings. I really don't want to go back and try and count them. Then 4 years on the council, there's probably another 50, 60, 70 meetings. That feels like plenty and enough. But if I have any advice for the incoming council, and it's every time I've sat down at a meeting and prepared to start, the feeling I've always had is one of humility that for 7, 8 consecutive elections, the citizens of this community saw fit to elect me as their mayor. And I don't take that for granted. And again, my advice is to the elected officials going forward is never take that for advantage. It's a privilege, and always show the public respect. You can disagree, and we've disagreed with a lot of comments that have been made at this meeting. I've disagreed with a lot of councilors on issues over the years, but every one of them has had the best interests of the community at heart, and I'm very confident that the council going forward will do that as well. That we can agree to disagree, but it's been valuable to me when people do come to these meetings and do disagree with us and tell us things that we don't necessarily want to hear. Because we do need to hear that information. We don't always know everything that's going on in the community. So thank you to everybody who's come before these meetings over the last 17 or 21 years, depending on how you want to count, and shared their concerns. With that, I'm going to move us back into the agenda. And to Councilor Waller's question and the other, I have no plans to schedule any special meetings unless the next few items in the agenda go contrary to how I'd like them to see, and then you'll see a bunch of special meetings before the end of the year. Does that sound like a threat?
Not to me.
Yeah. No old business. I didn't see anything on the agenda. New business. Item 9A, the second reading of ordinance 430-14, the zoning map amendment. I do need a motion to hold the second reading. Motion by Councilor Nemi, supported by Councilor Beyondich. So this is just the motion to hold the reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So if there's any questions or concerns relating to the ordinance, if adopted or if passed tonight, it will be published, this week or next week?
Should be this weekend.
Then I believe it's 30 days after publication, the ordinance would go into effect. So council, your wishes. If you're satisfied with the way it is, then we would need a motion to dispense with the second reading, but this is your opportunity to express any concerns you might have.
Support.
Was there a motion?
On the TV.
Thank you. Did you have something you wanted to? Yeah, please do.
Well, I own a property. My name is Jake Matson. I own the adjoining property to the property you guys want to rezone. I'd like to know, would any of you guys like to have commercial property in your backyard? Preferably a campground that they've talked about, because that's what you guys are gonna be putting in my backyard. I do not think that is commercial land. The city water runoff runs through that field. There's no sewer. There's no power. There's nothing back there. I don't know why you guys want to rezone that.
It is privately owned land, and so
I understand that, but if you guys rezone, where are they going to get the utilities? Are we going to start doing easements for everyone's property there? I mean, like I said, that's farmland. It's always been farmland. There used to be cows in that field, 40 years ago? That's not commercial property. That's farmland. There's no need to put a campground out there. I don't want to look at a campground every day when I wake up. Would you, any of you? I mean, we have a campground right there that the city owns that makes money, but you guys want to let another one go in there to compete with you? That's the only thing you guys have bringing in money. Let's put another one in town. Come on. We don't need 2 campgrounds. There's 1,000 people in this town. It's always been that way. We're not getting any bigger. We don't need another campground. It's a terrible idea to go to commercial. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Did anyone else wish to address the council? I think we almost had a motion, but I wanted to make sure that people got a chance to speak before we moved ahead. So I believe there was a motion on the floor. Was that Councilor Waller? And
Yes.
supported by Councilor Berg. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of dispensing with the second reading? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, 9B, Resolution 2024-19, adopting the 2025 budget. I think we discussed the budget at length previously, so if there's any other questions, this is the opportunity. But I think in order to start the process, if we could have a motion to adopt the resolution. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I could move by Councilor Nemi, second by Councilor Berg. Now, discussion.
I'd like to speak to Mr. Setnicker's point earlier, and I do definitely agree with that. The unfortunate part of it is the timeline on that money that is being used to backfill the agenda. We should have used that 2, 3, 4 years ago when it was received. But I do 100% agree that it takes away from planning for the future and expanding and taking care of our city. So that's my only comment. All we're worried about is cutting, and then throughout the year everybody comes and asks us, how come you guys didn't fix this? How come where this is broken? How come this isn't getting taken care of? And we don't have any money is always the answer. So if we continue to not take care of anything, that's what we're going to get.
And with Mr. Secretary's comment, I agree. I think we need, I'm one for designated funds. You'll be hearing me say it next year. We need to start putting money aside for equipment that we need. Not repair, and not cut. And the taxpayers might not like it, but you want to run a town, you want an ambulance, you want a fire department, you know, we've got to start taking care of our equipment. And we've got to start replacing it. A fire truck is too old. So hopefully next year we'll take care of some of these issues.
All right, turned it off.
So I'm just going to go back to, and I appreciate Councilor Beyondic's support on this. This COVID money, as I indicated before, I had come to the budget meetings before, and this COVID money, as far as the $100,000, came in late. Is that not correct, Councilor? So when the preliminary budget was figured initially at 18.5%, that did not include that money. So the argument that it appeared because Administrator Jacobson, for whatever reason, found it or forgot to apply it, I don't know. But we have an opportunity here. We just can't necessarily wait. If it means a special meeting to redo the budget, to put some money into into a fund or set aside for matching funds, then the city should do that. Just because the budget committee has submitted this budget right now doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be adopted at this meeting. You have till the end of the year. So I'm asking you to give some really consideration, not to what I'm saying, but to the future, as Councillor Beyondich said. Because we're going to come up to this again. Well, we don't have money for a grant for possibly the housing that perhaps could happen up at the school site and so forth. So that's all I have to say. But I would like you to reconsider this, defer this for another meeting, give some consideration to it. I don't think you're giving the consideration right now because it's before you as is. But there's nothing to say. I've been on the council before. The meetings have been deferred because of special considerations. So I'm asking you to do it again.
We've had these budget meetings every month on the agenda for at least 5 months. We've been discussing back and forth. And as far as the budget committee is, I'm done with that.
Well, this money that you may be done with it, but it came in late, Danny. Pardon?
For the 2025 budget.
Well, why should we wait for budgeting for 2026 for money that we need for matches, when in actuality, if you pass this budget as is, you have no money for matching?
Yeah, but we also had the 10,000 in there for the SD fund, the 50, so we did increase funding for different items.
But now you have a pretty good chunk that came in late.
First of all, you have to have a grant.
Pardon?
You have to have a grant if you want that.
Well,
and there is nobody that's written a grant to match.
Does it have to be earmarked, Jeff? I mean, can we set money aside for matches without having it specially earmarked for a specific grant?
So Mayor and Council, the rules of the COVID money that has to be designated for something is designated for something in this budget. On the topic of having matches or putting money to use, without revising levy numbers or having another meeting, the council does have will have the opportunity and the ability in 2025. There's $215,000 in capital outlay money. So that money would be in there. So that's, and as I was saying before about there isn't any magical tie between the dollar that goes in for this and the dollar that goes out. Still, just accounting wise and keeping the tax rate where it is, and keeping the levy where it is, by including that money as an offset, we're able to get it down to a single digit increase, while maintaining $250,000 in a capital outlay line item. Now there's some other stuff that's going to be some priorities, vehicles, fire department stuff, to be considered, but it doesn't leave you with $0 for those considerations. There's money to be specifically allocated during 2025 with this setup.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, there is a motion on the floor. And this is a roll call. So Shannon, do you know?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted. Item 9C, Resolution 2024-20-20, adopting the 2025 tax levy. So the previous one was the budget, now it's the levy. So in order to discuss, could I have a motion?
I'll support.
Moved by Councilor Nemi and seconded by Councilor Beyondich. Discussion.
And just a quick reminder, Mayor and Council, because hear these used interchangeably quite a bit. The budget is all of the amounts that the city plans on spending in these various departments. The levy is the total amount that will go out in property tax bills sent out by St. Louis County to be paid by the taxpayer. So a lot of times people will use them interchangeably or say, what's the difference? That's the reason for the two numbers.
Discussion? Hearing none, Shannon, when you're ready, please.
Aye.
Waller. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried, resolution has been adopted. Item 9D, resolution 2024-21 to set the 2025 wage for the city administrator. Once again, could I have a motion just so we can have discussion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Beyond, supported by Councilor Need. Fire away. Questions? I believe this was reviewed by the Personnel Committee.
So is this, the staff recommendation is to approve this, or is it the personnel committee to approve this?
It would be the personnel committees, just came through a staff on general board.
I have a question. Did the personnel committee complete evaluation
Yes,
this year?
yes. Far more in depth than ever before, too.
Pardon?
Far more in depth than we have in the past.
Okay, and you do recommend this wage increase?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Further discussion? Ready, Shannon?
Aye.
Waller. Aye. Amy.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. The resolution has been adopted. 9E, resolution 2024-22-22, set 2025 wage for the deputy clerk. Once again, so we can discuss, can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Councilor Mimi, is there support?
All support.
Supported by Councilor Beyondich. Again, I'm gonna ask the same question. Counselor.
Again, is this a staff recommendation
Yeah,
or
same.
the personnel committee?
Sorry, it was the same on all three. It was a
Thank you.
recommendation of all
You
three.
have to ask. We don't want someone asking. Ask. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Shannon, once again.
Aye.
Waller. Aye. Amy.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted. 9F, resolution 2024-23, to set 2025 wage for utility billing.
So moved.
And moved by Councilor Berg. Is there support? Supported by Councilor Mimi. And again, as you already said, this is
Yes.
comes as a recommendation from the personnel.
Noted for next year's meeting. Typo.
So I have a question. Has the public utilities endorsed this wage increase? Because her wage is paid by the public utilities, correct?
Correct. Not officially. The PUC will be meeting on Thursday, so they're not official.
Have they been apprised of this? So they are aware of it, Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Jen?
Aye.
Waller.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted. Item 9G, resolution 2024-24-24, to increase the benefit level for firefighters who are vested in the statewide volunteer firefighter plan. Again, could I have a motion here? So we can discuss.
All support.
Moved by Councilor Nemi, supported by Councilor Beyondich. Jeff, you indicated in your background information that this increase does not require any additional contribution from the city. It's all covered by the state fire rate.
Correct. And just for clarification on that or information on that, when you get your property tax bill, there's a little surcharge on the bottom, and that goes into the state, and that is sent to, and actually just skips right over us now that we're in para. That's aid to the city that must be used for pension funds for the firefighters. So this amount is based straight from the amount of fire state aid. The state runs the calculations on whether or not those contributions can support the level, and then that's what you have in your council packet.
That's something they do every year. I don't recall having seen this before.
They do it upon request once per year. I don't know if they do it periodically without request, but they do it every year.
Thank you.
One question for Chief Mack. Are we fairly in line with other communities around?
Further discussion?
Hi.
Waller? Hi. Amy?
Hi.
Bennett?
Aye. Motion is carried. The resolution is adopted. You get to take a breather here for a while. I'll believe still have to take minutes. Item 9H, approval of contract with amenities coordinator.
Make a motion.
Support.
Moved by Councilor Amy, supported by Councilor Biondi. Discussion.
I assume Larry's reviewed this.
Well, if it's timing that this is on the agenda right after, why not best? It's pretty tough to say no.
I didn't notice that.
I do like the brochure. Tracy, did you assemble this?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Just a comment, she does an excellent job. When I made contacts her about a question, I contact her, we meet with Jeff. We work, the three of us work well together. I work more than I added on, council to see honest with you. I just, I appreciate all the work she's done and ideas she comes up. Her and I are gonna be designing sweatshirts for next season. Right?
Okay, any further discussion? There's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 9I, approval of warming shack attendance.
Motion to approve both Chloe and
Support.
Moved by Councilor Berg, supported by Councilor Neely. Any further discussion?
hopefully they get more hours than last
I think we're already ahead of the game.
year.
Again, any further discussion? I keep forgetting that I gotta allow for a lag here for Councilor Waller. I'm not trying to cut you off. Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 9J, approval of fire and ambulance department applicant, Adam Lemieux.
I will make a motion to approve.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilor Beyond, supported by Councilor Nemi. So this is both firefighter and EMR, or
He came with a stack of certifications. It was a good meeting.
okay? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Congratulations on another recruiting effort.
He was a little slow on this one though. Didn't get in the closing packet when he bought his house. So.
Item 9K, authorization to prepare and submit grant applications to the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
To support.
They moved by Councilor Nemi, supported by Councilor Berg. Is the 1.25, is that fairly accurate?
It's 1.22069.25.
And
If you want to get exact.
my calculation was that the 5% that the city would be responsible for wherever we could find money would be 62,500. Like, which for a $1.2 million truck, it's like,
We'll find.
seems like a pretty good deal. Any further discussion? Who's going to complete all this? Did you do that, Jeff, or did
The chief and I.
do that? Thank you, Chief. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 9L, acceptance of the 2023 audit. I echo Councilor Beyondich's comment about this is a lot of numbers to read.
Especially Why Not Fest weekend.
I usually just jump to the end of the management letter. That's for, it's kind of like the highlight reel.
Right. Really riveting reading if anybody wants to borrow it.
And keep in mind that the city administrator is holding over your heads the threat of bringing the auditors in.
I'll make a motion to approve the audits.
Support.
Moved by Councilor Beyondich, supported by Councilor Neely. Further discussion?
I do have a couple questions.
Yes, please.
And I'm wondering what is being done to correct the deficiencies. There were 3 deficiencies noted, and I'm wondering what staff is doing to correct those.
So if anybody didn't hear, she asked what was being done to correct the deficiencies. The one on segregation of duties, we have different staff that accept the money are separate from the ones that do the bank deposits. We have double signers on we have 2 signers on the checks, and then the checks are presented to the council for approval. That's and as we discussed, I think it was in the first meeting before everybody was here, that there's a couple things that go into pretty much everybody's audit because you're small. Segregation of duties, what they want is a separate employee for each link in the chain of accepting the money, which would mean Biwabik would need 5 or 6 office employees. So that's a real common, they call it management point.
What about the check?
Could you repeat that, please, Councilor?
Uncashed or unclaimed check.
Yeah, I had not seen that.
Unclaimed, we have checks that, for whatever reason, nobody ever cashes them. Those are supposed to be sent into, they go to the Department of Commerce.
Is that new?
I'm just wondering if that's something that you're working on getting done before the end of the year, because I think it said it had to be done by the end of the year.
Yeah, and those go into, if you ever see, or you can go on a state website and see if you have unclaimed property, and people want, they see they have inheritances or something like that that comes back. And then segregation of duties and lack of control over financial reporting processes. Those are a function of not having enough staff in the office. So that's where we have the multiple reviews, the dual signers on checks.
So Councilor Wallard asked if the corrective actions will be in place before the end of the year as suggested or required by the audit. Is that feasible?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess I do have a question, because I'm not sure, like, as far as the separation of duties go, does Jeff do most of the financial, or does Shannon do financial? Or both?
For what I'm assuming you're looking at is like bookkeeping stuff, that would be mostly Shannon. Then I review it, I sign, and then the mayor signs. Mayor or mayor pro tem.
Okay, because I know there's always 2 signatures on the check. I just wasn't sure how, when it comes into the city, how it's handled after that.
Mm.
Rest of the council, any questions? There is a motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 9M, a review of fire truck repair costs. And I know this was discussed at the last meeting. I wasn't clear. Is this something we have to take action on, or is this a discussion?
No, just a point of information on how stuff was covered, and this is pretty convoluted at the end of the year. So I think the lesson here is we'll stay ahead of this in the future as stuff comes up. So we'll keep the council apprised as we go.
council questions or comments on this document? Does look like the expenses are in fact covered. There's certainly a little bit of heartburn while we were watching this unfold. As I'm sure there was for the chief.
December, so it's time to be nice. January have turned it again.
Well, I will say I watched a news article on a Chicago Fire Department, and the people gasped when they said they were running a 2005 fire truck, something that was that old. We're running a 1990, so that comes with costs. Unfortunate.
Apparently the world's different in the big city. Okay, since this requires no action, let it be noted in the minute that council did receive it. Item 9N, set date for the January city council meeting. And just that there is some various moving parts. I guess kind of leave it up to those of you who will be participating in that meeting, how you want to get out your calendars and figure this out. Are you looking for the both the regular meeting and the reorgan meeting? Are you going to combine them? Or?
So that is
January 13th.
Well, we might have to move that up.
That's awful late for a reorganization.
So the initial discussion between Jeff and I were to have the reorganizational meeting on the 6th and the city council on the 13th. However, incoming Councilor Lehman cannot be here on the 6th as he is flying back into town, and Councilor Nemi will be out of town to the 13th, and we'll have a vacant seat, so it's really going to cause quite the issue. And instead of trying to squeeze 2 meetings into all this, and then we'll also have an employee out starting on the 9th for a few days. The idea would be to have 1 meeting on the 7th instead of having 2 meetings, if that would work for everybody.
That's combined.
Combined.
I can do it on the 7th.
As soon as Steve says 1 meeting. I'm done. It's December, time to be nice.
I do think it would be in our best interest to have the reorganizational start at 5. Skip the agenda meeting and roll right into the regular, or maybe start at 5:30, depending on how many things are on that agenda. So, if that would be,
Everybody at the water here?
absolutely.
We're talking about this afternoon. Also, at the reorganization, you're going to have a vacancy declared. Good. It will be declared vacant. And I'm assuming you're going to want to direct the administrator to do
Flip it to
do something regarding getting applicants for that seat. And that all can't be done at that first, that can only be done at the first meeting. The second meeting is when you're going to have the interviews done and or application for the applicants there for interviews, and then appoint somebody to fill that seat. So it's going to take at least 2 meetings. Sorry, Dan.
That won't be till.
Why did that be done again?
Well, it doesn't. I thought there was a feeling that everybody wanted that seat filled in January.
So we would fill. Hopefully, then we'd have to have a February 3rd meeting to fill the vacancy if we wanted to have them seated by the February meeting. That'll be a council decision at the January meeting how we go about that process. Right? That was kind of
Just to clarify again, I don't have a dog in this race. My understanding is that the requirement is the council acts once a vacancy is declared. And so if Councilor Yonich chose to give a date prior to the end of the year, then the council could start the process at that point. We can't do anything until a date is set for the vacancy. The vacancy isn't declared until after the first of the year. Unless he wants to assume the mayorship. I think we'd be messing with statutes a little bit.
I think so.
But I think he can resign his seat at any point.
Special meeting to declare that vacancy. I don't think that's worthwhile of our time.
Fine with me. There are alternative options, but none of them are any particularly cleaner than any other one because of the complicated.
As it stands right-
The appointment not be made at a 5 or 5:30 on the second Monday in February.
Yeah, sure thing.
We have to have the,
You're gonna have the applicants and the interviews or however you're gonna do it. Council's gotta determine that. And January, yeah.
And we could theoretically have a, right before the meeting, we could have that way, because you have to approve the new council member appointment, if that's the route the council takes. I probably assume that we're not gonna hold a special election, because that's the other choice. Shannon's over there smiling like, please don't. We could have a meeting before the regular meeting, seat that person, because we can't approve them at the February meeting and seat them at the February meeting. Is the whole.
You could at a 5 o'clock
A
meeting.
5 o'clock.
And then at a 5:30 meeting, you did it.
And then you got one night instead of two, and I'm all for that.
That's enough.
So yeah, we'll for the reorganizational meeting, I think because Jeff and I have already talked about it, Larry and I have already talked about it, and we'll go into something with a schedule that's hopefully amicable to everybody on paper
A schedule for applicants.
for the process going into the January meeting, so that we can approve it as a council and then move forward to February.
So then tonight you're setting the reorganizational meeting and the January meeting for January 7th.
Does that work for everyone? Brian, that works for you?
And the time.
5 work good. Yeah. Do we need that as a motion? Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
The motion's been made by Councilor Beyondich, supported by Councilor Needy to set the meeting date for January as Tuesday, January 7th, starting at 5, with the
Regular meeting at 6.
correct. Schedule that, Shannon? No agenda meeting for January. Any discussion? Councilor Wallace, should we vote against this just to throw a wrench in it? Okay.
It's the Christmas season, I guess.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. I hope I'm even supposed to vote on it, but it's in front of the council tonight, so I have to vote. Yeah. That completes the new business. We are now at the portion of the meeting that's the open public forum, where members of the audience are invited to address the council with issues and concerns, knowing that we can't act on them this evening, but they may inform future meetings. And I know Councilor Beyondich will be listening very, very close. Anybody wish to address the council? Yes, Tracy.
We go up to the podium though when we do. I'm gonna get everybody to have it now because we're not talking from the audience anymore. You gotta go to the microphone.
Mayor. First of all, Jim, thank you so much for your years of service and appreciate your support for all of my endeavors. I don't think I've ever heard you say no, so I appreciate that. Not to me anyways. And I'll keep it short, but I just wanted to publicly thank the city for their involvement and their help with the Winox Fest this weekend, from Public Works helping us and all of the other Gilbert PD and fire department for wonderful auto extrication, and then keeping an eye on for the fireworks and shutting down the highway, even though it was a very active night for them. So anyways, that's all I had to say is thank you so much, and I appreciate the future going forward.
Thank you.
Next year, get that contracted before Why Not Fest, you're saying?
No.
Anyone else? Mr. Fleischer? Nothing.
Thanks, nothing else.
Anyone else? Once, twice? Well, I have 7:32 PM and I can entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion to adjourn at 7:32 and Councilor Mimi supporting. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Councilor Waller.
Thank you.